Lena Carter rushed through the busy streets of Manhattan, holding tight to her 5-year-old son Oliver's hand. Her heart was beating fast, and not just from running 3 blocks in heels. Today was the worst possible day for her regular babysitter to cancel. "Mommy, slow down," Oliver said, his little legs trying to keep up with her pace. "I'm sorry, sweetie," Lena said, stopping to catch her breath. She looked down at her son, with his dark hair and those striking blue eyes that reminded her so much of his father. "Remember what Mommy told you. You have to be very quiet and well-behaved at my office today. Okay, it's just for a few hours until Annie can pick you up." The enormous Blackwood Enterprises building loomed ahead of them. Lena worked as an executive assistant in the marketing department, and while she was good at her job, bringing her son to work could get her fired. But she had no choice today. She smoothed down Oliver's hair and straightened his little bow tie. He always insisted on dressing fancy, like the men he saw in magazines. Lena's heart squeezed. He looked more and more like his father every day. The security guard smiled at Oliver as they entered the building. So far, so good. They made it through the lobby and into the elevator without anyone important noticing them. Lena pressed the button for the 40th floor, praying this would work out. "Wow, Mommy, this elevator is like a rocket ship." Oliver's eyes were wide with excitement. "Remember," inside voice, Lena whispered, grateful that at least her son was in a good mood today. The elevator doors opened and Lena quickly led Oliver to her desk. She set him up with his coloring books and tablet, tucked away in the corner where he wouldn't be too visible. "Mrs. Thompson needs these reports right away," her co-worker Jessica said, dropping a stack of papers on Lena's desk. "And don't forget, the board meeting starts in 20 minutes. Lena's stomach dropped. The board meeting, she had completely forgotten. That meant the elevator dinged and the entire office fell silent. Roman Blackwood stepped out, commanding attention without saying a word. At 35, he was one of the youngest CEOs in New York and certainly one of the most feared. His reputation for being ruthless in business was legendary. Lena's heart stopped. There he was, the man she had spent one passionate night with 5 years ago, the man who had disappeared from her life before she could tell him she was pregnant. The man whose blue eyes she saw every time she looked at their son. She turned to tell Oliver to stay put, but her blood ran cold. The corner where she had left him was empty. "Daddy!" The excited shout echoed through the silent office. Every head turned as Oliver ran straight toward Roman Blackwood, arms outstretched, face beaming with joy. Lena felt the world tilt on its axis. This couldn't be happening, but it was. Roman stood frozen, his usually impassive face showing genuine shock as the little boy wrapped his arms around his legs. His eyes moved from Oliver to Lena, and in that moment, she saw the recognition dawn in them. Those same striking blue eyes that their son had inherited. The silence in the office was deafening. Lena could hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. 5 years of carefully guarded secrets were unraveling in seconds. "Ms. Carter," Roman's voice cut through the silence like a knife. "My office, now." Lena's legs felt like lead as she walked toward them. She could feel everyone's eyes on her, could practically hear the whispers that would soon spread through the building like wildfire. Oliver was still clinging to Roman's legs, looking up at him with pure adoration. "I knew it was you. I saw your picture in Mommy's drawer. She said you were very busy and important, but I knew I'd meet you someday." Roman's jaw tightened. Without another word, he scooped Oliver up into his arms, a surprisingly natural movement for a man known for his cold demeanor, and strode toward his office. Lena followed, her heart in her throat. The heavy door closed behind them with a final sounding click. Roman's office was massive, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. But right now, it felt like a cage. "Put him down," Lena said, finding her voice at last. "Please." Roman set Oliver down but kept a hand on the boy's shoulder. "What's your name, young man?" "Oliver James." "Carter, I'm 5½, Oliver announced proudly. "Are you really my daddy? Mommy has your picture and I look just like you. Everyone says so." Roman's eyes never left Lena's face. "Yes," he said quietly. "I believe I am." Tears threatened to spill from Lena's eyes. This was all wrong. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. She had tried to tell him all those years ago, had called his office countless times, had even written letters. But he had vanished on a business trip to Tokyo the morning after their night together, and every attempt to reach him had been blocked by his assistant. "Oliver, sweetheart," Lena said, her voice shaking. "Can you sit over there and play with your tablet for a few minutes? The grown-ups need to talk." Oliver looked between them, his little face serious. "Are you mad at each other?" "No," Roman answered before Lena could speak. "We just have a lot to discuss." His voice was gentler than Lena had ever heard it. Once Oliver was settled on the leather couch, Roman turned to Lena. His face was unreadable, but his eyes burned with intensity. "5 years," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "You kept my son from me for 5 years." "I tried to tell you," Lena whispered fiercely. "I called. I wrote. Your assistant said you didn't want to be bothered with personal matters. And you gave up?" His voice rose slightly. "You were carrying my child and you gave up. What was I supposed to do?" Lena fought to keep her voice down. "Storm into your office? Create a scene? You made it very clear that night meant nothing to you when you disappeared without a word." Roman ran a hand through his dark hair, a rare gesture of frustration. "That night meant everything," he said, so quietly Lena almost missed it. "Roman's." Words hung in the air between them. Lena's heart skipped a beat, but she couldn't let herself believe him. Not after all this time. "Mr. Blackwood," she started, trying to keep her voice professional. "Don't," he cut her off. "Don't call me that. Not here, not now." Oliver had dozed off on the couch, his tablet forgotten beside him. He looked so peaceful, so innocent of the storm brewing between his parents. "You want to know everything?" Lena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Fine. After you left, I found out I was pregnant. I was terrified. I tried calling you for weeks. Your assistant always said the same thing. You were too busy. You weren't taking personal calls." Roman's face darkened. "Margaret. She was fired 2 years ago for keeping important matters from me. I had no idea." "Would it have made a difference?" Lena challenged him. "You were the rising star CEO. I was just the girl from marketing you spent one night with." "You were never just anything," Roman said, moving closer to her. "That night, I had never let anyone get that close. It scared me." Lena wrapped her arms around herself, remembering. The office party. The way he had looked at her across the room. How they had talked for hours, not about business, but about dreams, fears, everything. How his kiss had felt like coming home. "I went to Tokyo to clear my head," Roman continued, "to figure out what these feelings meant. When I came back, you had transferred to a different department. I thought you regretted what happened. I transferred because I was starting to show," Lena said quietly. "I couldn't bear the whispers, the judgment. I had Oliver, and I built her life for us, a good life." Roman looked at their sleeping son, his expression softening. "He's perfect." "He is," Lena agreed. "He's smart, kind, and too clever for his own good sometimes. He found your picture in my drawer last year. I couldn't lie to him about who you were. But you never told him he could meet me. I was protecting him. Protecting myself too, I guess." Lena wiped away a tear. "Every time I see him smile, I see you. Every time he gets that determined look on his face, I see you. It hasn't been easy." Roman reached out, hesitating before touching her cheek. His hand was warm, gentle, so different from his boardroom persona. "I have a son," he said, wonder in his voice. "All this time I had a son." The door burst open, making them jump apart. Victoria Blackwood, Roman's mother and the company's board chairwoman, stood there, her face a mask of fury. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded. "The entire building is buzzing about. Some child calling you Daddy, Roman. Please tell me this is a mistake." Her sharp voice woke Oliver, who sat up, rubbing his eyes. Victoria's gaze locked onto him, and her face went pale. Even she couldn't deny the resemblance. "Mother," Roman said, his voice carrying a warning, "meet your grandson, Oliver." Victoria's perfectly manicured hand flew to her throat. "This is impossible. You can't possibly believe. This woman must be after your money. Why else would she hide this for so long?" "Mrs. Blackwood," Lena stepped forward. "I never asked Roman for anything. I never wanted his money. Oliver has everything he needs. Everything except his father, Roman said quietly. That changes now. Victoria's eyes narrowed. The board meeting starts in 5 minutes. We need to discuss damage control. This could affect stock prices, investor confidence. The board can wait, Roman said firmly. For the first time in his life, he turned his back on his mother's demands. He walked over to Oliver, kneeling down to be at eye level with his son. "Hey, buddy," he said softly. "I'm sorry I've missed so much. Would you like to have lunch with me and your mum today?" Oliver's face lit up. "Really? Can we get pizza?" Roman laughed, a sound Lena hadn't heard in 5 years. "Anything you want." Victoria made a disapproving noise. "Roman, think about what you're doing. Think about the company." "I'm thinking about what matters," Roman said, standing up with Oliver in his arms. "For the first time in my life, I'm thinking about what really matters." Lena watched them together, her heart aching. This was what she had dreamed of but never dared hope for. Oliver with his father, Roman looking at their son like he was the most precious thing in the world. "We have a lot to figure out," Roman said to Lena over Oliver's head, "but I want to be part of his life, part of both your lives if you'll let me." Before Lena could respond, her phone buzzed. It was Annie, Oliver's backup babysitter, saying she could pick him up now. "She can wait," Roman said, reading the message over her shoulder. "Today, we're having pizza with our son." Victoria stormed out, no doubt to handle damage control her way. But for once, Roman didn't seem to care about the business implications. He was too busy listening to Oliver chatter about his favorite superhero movies. As they left the office together, Lena felt every eye on them. But Roman's hand on the small of her back was steady, grounding. For the first time in 5 years, she allowed herself to hope. The pizza place was small, nothing like the expensive restaurants Roman usually frequented, but Oliver's delight at building his own pizza made it feel like the finest dining establishment in New York. And then Jimmy at school said Superman could beat Batman, but I said Batman is smarter, right, Daddy? Oliver barely paused for breath. "Between stories, right?" Roman agreed, his eyes never leaving his son's face. He seemed to be trying to memorize every detail, make up for every moment he had missed. Lena watched them together, her pizza untouched. She remembered all the nights she had cried herself to sleep, wondering if she had made the right choice. All the times Oliver had asked about his daddy, and she had to find the right words to explain without making Roman the villain of the story. "Lena!" Roman's voice brought her back to the present. Oliver was occupied with his third slice of pizza. "Fahuiti tusene. I want to do this right. All of it. I want to be there for every moment from now on." "It's not that simple," Lena said. "You can't just walk into our lives and—" "Why not?" he challenged. "Give me one good reason why we can't try. Why we can't be a family." Family. The word hit her like a physical blow. "Because you're Roman Blackwood. Your life is board meetings and business deals. Oliver needs stability, routine." "Then I'll change," Roman said simply. "I'll make time. I'll be there. For school plays and soccer games and whatever else he needs. Whatever you both need." Lena sat in her small apartment that evening, watching Oliver sleep on the couch. He was exhausted from the excitement of the day, still wearing his little bow tie. The pizza box from lunch sat on her counter, a reminder that today hadn't been a dream. Her phone buzzed. "Roman, I need to see you," his message read. "There's so much we need to talk about." She glanced at Oliver. Annie had agreed to stay late tonight. With trembling fingers, she replied, "The coffee shop on 8th Street. 30 minutes." The coffee shop was almost empty when she arrived. Roman was already there, looking out of place in his expensive suit. He had loosened his tie and his hair was slightly messy, like he'd been running his hands through it. "I went through every email, every phone message from that time," he said as soon as she sat down. "Margaret deleted them all. Every single attempt you made to reach me. It doesn't matter now, it matters to me." His voice was rough with emotion. "I missed 5 years of his life because my assistant thought she was protecting me from complications. I missed his first steps, his first words. First word was phone," Lena said softly. "Because I was always staring at mine, waiting for you to call." Roman's hand clenched around his coffee cup. "Tell me everything, please. I want to know every detail." So she did. She told him about the morning sickness that hit during important meetings. about choosing Oliver's name because it had been her grandfather's, about the lonely nights in the hospital, about Oliver's first smile, first laugh, first everything. I kept a journal, she admitted, wrote down everything, took pictures. I always thought, hoped, someday you'd want to know. I want to know it all, Roman said, and I want to be there for everything that comes next, but there's something you should know. Lena's heart sank. Here it comes, she thought, the complications. My mother is calling an emergency board meeting tomorrow. She's worried about the company's image, about what this means for our reputation. She wants me to... He paused, looking disgusted. She suggested offering you a settlement to keep things quiet. I don't want your money, Lena said immediately. I never did. I know. Roman reached across the table, taking her hand. That's one of the things I loved about you that night. You saw me, not my bank account. Loved. The word hung between them. What are you going to do? She asked. I'm going to tell them all to go to hell. His voice was calm but determined. I've spent my entire life being what my mother wanted, what the company needed. I'm done. Oliver is my son, and I'm not hiding him or pushing him away to protect some corporate image. Lena felt tears forming. He's already so attached to you. If you change your mind, I won't. Roman squeezed her hand. But there's more. These feelings I had for you 5 years ago, they never went away. Seeing you today, meeting our son. Lena, I want a chance, a real chance with both of you. Roman, she started, but he cut her off. I know it's fast. I know you have every reason not to trust me, but I'm asking for a chance to prove myself, to be the father Oliver deserves, and the man you needed me to be 5 years ago. A tear slipped down Lena's cheek. I never stopped thinking about you. Every time Oliver smiled your smile or got that determined look in his eyes, you were always there. Then let me be there for real, Roman said. Let me take you both to dinner tomorrow night. A proper dinner, not just pizza. Let me start making up for lost time. Before Lena could answer, her phone rang. It was Annie. Ms. Carter, Oliver woke up asking for both of you. He's worried his daddy will disappear again. Roman could hear Oliver's sniffles in the background. Without hesitation, he stood up. We're coming. Tell him we're both coming right now. They rushed to Lena's apartment. Oliver was sitting on the couch in his Superman pajamas, tears staining his cheeks. But his face lit up when he saw them both. You came back, he said, throwing himself into Roman's arms. I'll always come back, Roman promised, holding him close. I'm not going anywhere, buddy, ever again. Lena watched them, her heart full. This morning, she had been terrified of anyone discovering her secret. Now, watching Oliver fall asleep. In his father's arms while Roman hummed an off-key lullaby, she wondered if some secrets were meant to come out. Stay, she found herself saying. Just stay with him tonight. He needs you. Roman looked up at her, his eyes filled with emotion. What about you? What do you need? I need... Lena took a deep breath. I need to know this is real, that tomorrow you won't. Wake up and decide this is too complicated, too messy. The only complicated thing in my life was pretending my heart didn't stop every time I saw you in the office, Roman said. Everything else, being with my son, being with you, that's the simplest thing in the world. He shifted Oliver gently so he could reach out and take her hand, pulling her down to sit beside them on the couch. And there, in the soft light of her small living room, with their son sleeping peacefully between them, Lena finally let herself believe that sometimes love gets a second chance. The next morning, the Blackwood Enterprises building was buzzing with gossip. Employees whispered behind their hands as Roman walked through the lobby with Oliver's small hand in his. Lena followed close behind, her head held high despite the stares. And this is where Daddy works, Roman was telling Oliver, who looked around the massive lobby with wide eyes. Victoria Blackwood stood by the elevator, her face a mask of controlled anger. The board is waiting, Roman, and this is hardly the place for a child. Oliver goes where I go this morning, Roman said firmly. You wanted a board meeting about my son. Fine, let them meet him. Inside the boardroom, 12 stern-faced executives sat around a large table. Their expressions ranged from curiosity to disapproval as Roman walked in with Oliver. Everyone, this is my son, Oliver, Roman announced without preamble. And yes, I only found out about him yesterday. No, I don't care what this does to our stock prices. And if anyone has a problem with that, the door is right there. Oliver waved at the room. Hi, do you all work with my daddy? A few smiles cracked. Through the serious faces, even Harrison Wells, the toughest board member, couldn't help but soften at Oliver's innocent question. Roman, Victoria cut in. This is highly inappropriate. We need to discuss damage control, not play family reunion. No, Mother. What we need to discuss is how this company will adapt to my new priorities. Roman's voice was steel. I've missed 5 years of my son's life because of this company's demands. That ends today. Lena stood quietly by the door, watching the scene unfold. She had tried to talk Roman out of this, but he had been adamant. If they were going to be a family, he wanted it all out in the open. I'm restructuring my schedule, Roman continued. I'll be leaving the office at reasonable hours. I'll take weekends off, and I'll be taking the next 2 weeks off entirely to spend time with my son. Victoria's face turned red. This is exactly what I feared. That woman and her child are already destroying everything we've built. That woman, Roman's voice rose, is the mother of my child, and her name is Lena. If anyone in this room disrespects her or Oliver, they'll be looking for a new job before lunch. Oliver, oblivious to the tension, had wandered over to Victoria. Are you my grandma? Mommy says everyone needs a grandma. Victoria froze, looking down at the little boy who had her son's eyes. For a moment, her carefully maintained facade cracked. Yes, I suppose I am, she said softly. Cool. Can I show you my drawings? Daddy says I'm really good at drawing. Buildings just like him. Roman had told Oliver about his early dreams of being an architect, Lena realized. A dream he had given up to run the company after his father died. Victoria sat down, allowing Oliver to climb into the chair next to her. As he pulled out his drawing pad, chattering happily, something in her expression changed. Perhaps, she said slowly, we've all been too focused on the wrong things. The board meeting turned into something unprecedented. As Oliver showed his drawings to each member, the tension dissolved. They discussed Roman's schedule changes not as a crisis but as a necessary adaptation. We can move the Asia meetings to mornings, Harrison suggested. That would free up your afternoons for family time. And video conferencing for the Tokyo office, another member added. You don't need to travel there monthly. Roman caught Lena's eye across the room, his smile saying everything. This was more than they had hoped for. Later in Roman's office, Oliver had fallen asleep on the leather couch again. Victoria lingered in the doorway. He's extraordinary, she said quietly. Just like you were at that age. Mother, Roman started. Let me finish, Victoria held up a hand. I was wrong about all of it. I've spent so many years pushing you to be perfect for this company that I forgot what really matters. She turned to Lena. I owe you an apology. Both of you. Lena shook her head. Oliver needs a grandmother more than I need an apology. Victoria's eyes filled with tears, something neither Roman nor Lena had ever seen before. May I take him to the park sometime? There's a lovely one near my house. You'd both be welcome, of course. He'd love that, Lena said softly. Roman wrapped an arm around Lena's waist, pulling her close. We all would. As Victoria left, dabbing at her eyes, Roman pressed a kiss to Lena's temple. Move in with me, he whispered. What? Not to my penthouse. It's too cold, too impersonal. We'll buy a house, something with a yard for Oliver to play in, somewhere we can build a life together. Roman, we can't just... Why not? He challenged. Haven't we wasted enough time? I love you, Lena. I loved you 5 years ago, and I never stopped. And now, seeing you with our son, knowing what an amazing mother you are, I love you even more. Lena turned in his arms, looking up at him. You really mean that? With all my heart. He brushed away a tear from her cheek. Marry me. Roman. I mean it. Marry me, be my wife. Let me wake up every morning to both of you. Let me spend the rest of my life making up for the time we lost. Oliver stirred on the couch, blinking sleepily. Are you and Mommy going to kiss now, like in the movies? They both laughed, and Roman pulled back slightly to look at their son. "What do you think, buddy? Should Mommy marry me?" Oliver's face lit up. "Yes, then we can have pancakes together every morning." Lena looked between them, the two loves of her life, finally together. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes to all of it." Roman's kiss tasted of coffee and promises, and 5 years of longing. Outside his office, the city buzzed with gossip about the CEO's secret family. But inside, in their own little world, everything was finally exactly as it should be. The news of Roman Blackwood's engagement to his former employee and mother of his secret child exploded across New York's social scene. The tabloids had a field day, but Roman didn't care. He was too busy hunting with Lena and Oliver. "This one has a tree house." Oliver ran through the backyard of the 5th house they'd seen that week. "And a security system," Roman added, his protective instincts in full force now that the media had gotten wind of his family. Lena watched Oliver climb the wooden ladder. "It's perfect, isn't it?" Roman pulled her close. "It's perfect because you're both here." They bought the house that day. A beautiful brownstone with enough space for their family to grow, close enough to Oliver's school, but far enough from the business district to feel like an escape. Moving day was chaos. Oliver insisted on carrying his own boxes, though they were mostly empty. Roman had hired movers, but he still rolled up his sleeves and carried boxes alongside them, ignoring their shocked expressions at seeing the famous CEO getting his hands dirty. Victoria showed up unexpectedly, carrying a huge teddy bear for Oliver and an antique vase for the house. "Every home needs something with history," she said, her way of giving her blessing. But not everyone was as supportive. James Sterling, Roman's closest business partner, cornered him at the office the next day. "You're making a mistake," James said. "A huge mistake. This woman appears out of nowhere with a kid and suddenly you're playing house." "Watch what you say about my family," Roman warned. "Family?" James laughed. "Roman, wake up. She hid this child for 5 years. What else is she hiding? Have you even done a background check?" Roman's fist connected with James's jaw before he could think better of it. The sound of the impact echoed through the office. "Consider our partnership terminated," Roman said coldly, leaving James sprawled across his desk. He drove home with his hand throbbing, dreading having to explain to Lena. But when he walked in, the sight that greeted him made everything else fade away. Lena and Oliver were in the kitchen, covered in flour, attempting to make cookies. Oliver had a smudge of chocolate on his nose, and Lena's hair was a mess, but they were laughing. "Daddy!" Oliver ran to him. "We're making cookies for your office. Mommy says everyone needs cookies sometimes." Roman scooped him up, flour and all. "That's very thoughtful, buddy. But maybe we should keep these cookies just for us?" Later, after Oliver was in bed, Lena noticed Roman's bruised knuckles. What happened? He told her about James, expecting her to be upset. Instead, she kissed his injured hand. "My hero," she said softly. "I'd do anything to protect you both," he said. "You know that, right?" "I know. But Roman, you can't solve everything with your fists or your wallet. Some people will never understand us. We have to be stronger than their judgment." He pulled her close. "When did you get so wise?" "Around the same time I became a single mother to your son," she teased. Their wedding plans were simple despite Victoria's protests. They wanted something small, intimate, something that put Oliver at the center, since he was the reason they found their way back to each other. The ceremony would be in their backyard under the old oak tree. Oliver would be the ring bearer, a role he took very seriously. "But what if I drop the rings?" he worried during the rehearsal. "Then we'll pick them up," Roman assured him. "The important thing is we're together." The night before the wedding, Roman found Lena in Oliver's room, watching their son sleep. "Second thoughts?" he asked quietly. She shook her head. "Just thinking about how much has changed. A month ago I was terrified of you finding out about him. Now we're a family," Roman finished. "The way we always should have been. Do you ever regret it? The time we lost?" Roman wrapped his arms around her from behind. "I regret not fighting harder to find you. I regret letting my mother and this company run my life. But I don't regret where we are now. Every moment with you and Oliver is a gift." "Even the tantrums?" "Even those," he chuckled. "Though I have to say, He gets that stubborn streak from you." "Oh, really?" Lena turned in his arms. "Pretty sure that's all Blackwood genes." Their laughter woke Oliver, who blinked at them sleepily. "Is it time for the wedding?" "Not yet, champ." Roman sat on the edge of the bed. "But soon. Want me to tell you a story? Tell me about how you met Mommy again." So Roman told the story, the child-friendly version of the office party where he first saw Lena. How she had stood out in the crowd, not because she was trying to impress him like everyone else, but because she was helping an elderly janitor clean up a spilled drink. "And then what happened?" Oliver asked, though he knew the story by heart. "Then I fell in love with her," Roman said simply. "And a few years later we got the greatest gift ever. You." Lena wiped away tears as Oliver drifted back to sleep. "Pa, you're good at that. The stories." "I have a lot of lost time to make up for," Roman said. "Stories are a good start." They left Oliver's room hand in hand, both thinking about tomorrow, about the promises they would make under the oak tree, with their son standing proud between them. "I love you," Lena said suddenly. "Not because you're Roman Blackwood, CEO, but because you're Oliver's father. Because you fight for what matters. Because you choose us every day." Roman kissed her softly. "I'll always choose you, both of you, every single day for the rest of our lives." Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars. Inside their home, in the quiet of the night, they had everything they ever needed. Tomorrow would make it official, but in their hearts, they were already a family. A family built on second chances, unexpected revelations, and a love strong enough to overcome 5 years of separation. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear. Lena stood in front of her bedroom mirror, her simple white dress catching the sunlight. No elaborate ball gown or designer label, just a dress that made her feel like herself. Oliver burst into the room in his little tuxedo. "Mommy, you look like a princess, and you look very handsome," she said, straightening his bow tie. "Is Daddy ready?" "He's nervous," Oliver whispered loudly. "Grandma says he keeps fixing his tie over and over." Victoria appeared in the doorway, looking elegant, in a pale blue suit. "The guests are arriving, and Roman is about to wear a hole in the floor." Pacing. The backyard had been transformed. White chairs lined a natural aisle leading to the old oak tree. Flowers bloomed everywhere, and fairy lights hung from the branches, ready for when evening fell. "Ready, buddy?" Roman knelt down to Oliver's level. "Remember, you walk very carefully with the rings." Oliver nodded solemnly. "I practiced all week, Daddy. I won't let you down." The ceremony was simple but perfect. Oliver walked down the aisle first, concentrating hard on the pillow holding the rings. When he made it without dropping them, his proud smile lit up the whole yard. Then Lena appeared and Roman's world stopped. She walked toward him with tears in her eyes and a smile that outshone the sun. Their eyes locked, and in that moment, 5 years of separation melted away. "Dearly beloved," the minister began, but Roman barely heard the words. He was lost in Lena's eyes, in the feeling of Oliver's small hand holding onto his leg, in the perfection of this moment. They had written their own vows. Roman went first. "Lena, 5 years ago I made the biggest mistake of my life by letting you go, but fate gave us a second chance in the form of our amazing son. I promise to spend every day making up for lost time, to be the husband you deserve, and the father Oliver needs. To choose our family over everything else every single time." Lena's voice shook as she spoke. "Roman, you came back into our lives like a whirlwind, turning everything upside down in the best possible way. You didn't just accept Oliver, you embraced being his father with your whole heart. I promise to never let fear keep us apart again, to face whatever comes together as a family." "The rings?" the minister asked. Oliver stepped forward importantly. "I kept them safe." Everyone laughed as Roman and Lena slipped the rings onto each other's fingers. Simple gold bands, no diamonds or flashy stones. Just like their love, what mattered was what they represented, not how they looked. "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." "Ooh." Oliver covered his eyes as his parents kissed. The reception was just as intimate as the ceremony. Tables scattered around the yard, twinkling lights overhead, music playing softly. Oliver insisted on having the first dance with both his parents. Standing on Roman's feet while holding Lena's hand, Victoria watched them, dabbing at her eyes. The tough businesswoman was gone, replaced by a grandmother who couldn't stop smiling at her grandson. "I was so wrong," she told Lena later, "about everything. Seeing you three together. This is what Roman always needed. What we all needed." James. Sterling showed up uninvited, his jaw still bruised, but instead of causing trouble, he walked straight to Roman. "I'm sorry," he said simply. "Watching you today, seeing how happy you are. I was an idiot. Can you forgive me?" Roman looked at Lena, who nodded slightly. "Everyone deserves a second chance," Roman said. "We're living proof of that." As night fell, Oliver fell asleep in Victoria's lap while she told him stories about Roman as a little boy. Roman pulled Lena away from the party to a quiet corner of the yard. "Happy?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her. "More than I ever thought possible." She leaned into him. "I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and this will all have been a dream." Not a dream. Roman, the morning of the wedding, arrived with golden sunlight streaming through the trees. Lena stood in her bedroom, looking at herself in the mirror. Her dress was simple but elegant, just like she wanted. Nothing too flashy or extravagant. "You look beautiful," Victoria said from the doorway. Roman's mother had shown up early, insisting on helping with the preparations. "Thank you," Lena said softly. "For everything. For accepting us." Victoria stepped forward, adjusting Lena's veil. "You know, I spent years trying to find the perfect woman for Roman, someone from the right family, with the right connections. And here you were all along giving me the most precious gift, a grandson." A knock at the door interrupted them. Oliver burst in wearing his tiny tuxedo, his hair slightly messy despite Victoria's best efforts to tame it. "Mommy, Daddy's nervous." "He keeps fixing his tie over and over," Lena laughed. The great Roman Blackwood nervous about a backyard wedding downstairs. Roman was indeed fidgeting with his tie. His best man, Thomas, an old friend from college who had nothing to do with the business world, watched him with amusement. "Relax," Thomas said. "She's not going to run away." "I know," Roman said. I want everything to be perfect for them." The backyard had been transformed. White chairs lined a natural aisle leading to the oak tree, which was decorated with simple white flowers. No elaborate decorations, no excessive displays of wealth. Just like Lena wanted, the guests started arriving, a small group of close friends and family. No business associates except those who had become true friends. No press, no photographers except the one Lena had chosen. Oliver took his role as ring bearer very seriously, practicing his walk one last time. The rings sat on a small velvet pillow, tied securely just in case. As the music started, Roman took his place under the oak tree. His heart nearly stopped when he saw Lena walking toward him, but it was Oliver who brought tears to his eyes. Their son walked in front of his mother, head held high, so proud to be part of this moment. "Hi, Daddy," Oliver whispered loudly when he reached the front, making everyone laugh. The ceremony was simple but meaningful. They had written their own vows, speaking from their hearts rather than following tradition. "Lena," Roman began, his voice thick with emotion. "5 years ago I let fear drive me away from the best thing that ever happened to me. But fate gave us a second chance, in the form of our amazing son. I promised to spend every day making up for lost time, to be the husband and father you both deserve, to put our family first always." Lena wiped away tears as she spoke. "Roman, you came back into our lives like a whirlwind, turning everything upside down in the best possible way. You didn't just accept Oliver. You embraced being his father with your whole heart. I promise to never let fear come between us again, to face whatever comes our way together, to love you both more each day." Oliver tugged on Roman's sleeve. "Can I say something too?" The officiant smiled and nodded. "I promise to be the best son ever," Oliver declared, "and to always pick up my toys, most of the time." Laughter and tears mingled as Roman and Lena exchanged rings. When they kissed, Oliver covered his eyes dramatically, peeking through his fingers. The reception was held right there in the backyard. Tables had been set up on the lawn, strings of lights hanging overhead. Oliver went from table to table, charming everyone with his stories. Victoria caught Roman watching Lena dance with Oliver. "You know," she said quietly. Your father would have loved this. He always said success wasn't worth anything without love. I wish he could have met them, Roman said. He has, Victoria smiled. Through you. The way you are with Oliver, it's exactly how your father was with you before. The business took over our lives. The sun was setting when Roman pulled Lena away from the party, leading her to the treehouse. Really? She laughed. In my wedding dress? Trust me. He helped her up the ladder. Inside, he had set up a small table with champagne and the cookies they had made together. Our first family tradition, he said, holding up a slightly misshapen chocolate chip cookie. Bad baking with good intentions. Lena took a bite, smiling. Perfect. Below them, they could hear Oliver telling the guests about his plans for the treehouse. Apparently, it was going to become a secret superhero base. He has your imagination, Roman said, and your ambition, Lena added. Did you hear him explaining? His business plan for a lemonade stand to your mother. Roman pulled her close. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For giving me a second chance. For raising our son so beautifully. For making me understand what really matters in life. From below, Oliver's voice called out. Daddy, Mommy, where are you? It's time for cake. They climbed down to find their son bouncing with excitement. The cake was simple but elegant, just like everything else. But what made it special was the little family of 3 on top holding hands. As they cut the cake together, Oliver helping with both their hands over his, Lena looked at her new husband and their son. From a secret that had weighed on her heart for 5 years to this moment of pure joy. Their journey hadn't been traditional, but it had led them exactly where they were meant to be. That night, after the guests had gone and Oliver had finally fallen asleep, clutching his piece of the wedding cake box, Roman and Lena stood in their backyard. The light still twinkled overhead, casting a magical glow. Mrs. Blackwood, Roman said softly. Yes, Mr. Blackwood. Ready for our next adventure? Lena looked up at their home where their son slept peacefully. With you two? Always. Life settled into a new rhythm for the Blackwood family. Roman split his time between the office and home, never missing Oliver's bedtime. Lena continued working in marketing, now with a corner office and a team of her own. But their happiness was about to face its biggest test. James Sterling hadn't forgotten the humiliation of being punched by Roman. He'd spent months gathering information, and now he was ready to strike. The story broke on a quiet Sunday morning. Oliver was showing Roman how to make pancakes shaped like dinosaurs when Victoria called. Turn on the news, she said, her voice tight. Now. The headline made Lena's blood run cold. Blackwood Enterprises CEO's secret family, the truth revealed. James had twisted everything. The article painted Lena as a calculating gold digger who had trapped Roman with a pregnancy. It suggested she had been promoted unfairly. Worst of all, it questioned Oliver's paternity. Daddy, why is your picture on TV? Oliver asked innocently. Roman switched off the television. Some people are telling lies about us, buddy. But don't worry, I'll fix this. But fixing it wasn't so simple. The board called an emergency meeting. Shareholders were panicking. The company's stock was dropping. Step down temporarily, Victoria suggested. Just until this blows over. No, Roman said firmly. I won't let them think there's any truth to these lies. Lena tried to shield Oliver from the chaos, but it was impossible. Reporters camped outside their house. Parents at his school whispered and stared. One day Oliver came home crying. Tommy said, "You're not really my daddy." He sobbed into Roman's chest. He said his mom saw it on TV. Something in Roman broke. He called a press conference for the next day. Don't, Lena pleaded. It'll only make things worse. I'm done hiding, done letting others control our story. The conference room was packed. Cameras flashed as Roman took the podium, but instead of his usual business demeanor, he spoke from his heart. 5 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I let fear and ambition drive me away from the woman I loved. I missed the birth of my son, missed his first steps, his first words, but fate gave me a second chance. He looked directly into the cameras. To those spreading lies about my wife and son, you're attacking an innocent child and a woman whose only crime was protecting him. I've seen the DNA test results. I've known from the moment I saw Oliver that he was mine, not because of some medical proof, but because a father knows his child." The room was silent as Roman continued. "I'm not stepping down. I'm not hiding. My family. And if any shareholders have a problem with that, they can sell their stock, because I'd rather lose this company than lose one more minute with my son." James Sterling stood up in the back of the room. "You're throwing away everything for a woman who deceived you." "No, James, I'm finally choosing what matters. And by the way, you're fired from the board. Effective immediately." That night, as they tucked Oliver into bed, he asked, "Are the bad people going to make you go away, Daddy?" "Never," Roman promised. "Nothing in this world could make me leave you or your mom." Later, in their bedroom, Lena broke down. "Maybe I should resign. Take Oliver somewhere quiet until this blows over." Roman held her tight. "We face this together. No more running." Days turned into weeks. Slowly, the media frenzy died down, the stock recovered. James Sterling's attempts to damage their family backfired when several employees came forward with stories of how Roman had changed, how he now encouraged work-life balance, how he had created a daycare center in the office building. Victoria surprised everyone by giving an interview defending Lena. "My daughter-in-law did what any mother would do, protected her child. I only wish I had put my own son's happiness first, the way she put Oliver's needs first." One evening, Roman found Lena in Oliver's room, watching their son sleep. "Penny, for your thoughts," he asked softly. "I was just remembering how scared I was when I found out I was pregnant, how alone I felt. And now look at us. We survived a scandal, public humiliation, everything they threw at us." Roman pulled her close. "We're stronger together. Always have been. Even when I'm driving you crazy with my bargain hunting? Even then," he laughed, "though I still don't understand why a billionaire's wife clips coupons." "Because some things aren't about money," Lena said. "It's about teaching Oliver values. Like you turning down that merger deal because the other company wanted to lay off half their workers." "Speaking of Oliver," Roman said carefully, "what would you think about giving him a sibling?" Lena's eyes widened. "Really? Really? I want to do it right this time. Be there for everything." Before she could answer, Oliver appeared in the doorway, clutching his teddy bear. "Can I sleep with you tonight? I had a bad dream." They ended up all squeezed into the master bed, Oliver between them, telling stories until he fell asleep. "Yes," Lena whispered over their son's head. "Yes, what?" "Yes, to another baby. Yes to everything, as long as we're together." Roman reached across Oliver to take her hand. Outside, the city lights twinkled, but their whole world was right here in this bed, in this moment, in this love that had survived secrets, scandals, and separation. 8 months later, Lena sat in her doctor's office, squeezing Roman's hand. As they looked at the ultrasound screen, "Twins," the doctor said with a smile, both looking perfectly healthy. Roman's face lit up with joy. They had decided to wait to tell Oliver until after the first trimester, but keeping the secret was getting harder. That evening, they sat Oliver down for a family meeting. "Buddy, how would you feel about being a big brother?" Roman asked. Oliver's eyes went wide. "Really? When? Where are they?" "They're in Mommy's tummy," Roman explained, "and there's 2 of them." "2?" Oliver placed his small hand on Lena's barely visible bump. "Hi, babies. I'm your big brother." The pregnancy brought its own challenges. Lena's morning sickness was worse with twins. Roman rearranged his entire schedule to be there for every appointment, every moment. Victoria threw herself into grandmother mode, showing up with baby catalogs and nursery ideas. She and Lena spent weekends planning, their former tensions forgotten. 2. "More grandchildren," Victoria mused, touching Lena's growing belly. "I never thought I'd be this blessed." The media caught wind of the pregnancy, but this time the coverage was different. The story of the billionaire CEO doting on his pregnant wife, rushing out of meetings when she craved ice cream at midnight, captured the public's imagination. One day, Roman found Oliver in the soon-to-be nursery, arranging his old toys. "What? How you doing, champ?" "Getting ready for my brother and sister," Oliver said seriously. "They can have my old teddy bears, but not Superman. Superman stays with me." Roman hugged his son tight. "You're going to be the best big brother ever." At 7 months, Lena went into early labor. Roman was in a board meeting when the call came. "The babies are coming," was all Lena said. Roman broke every traffic law getting to the hospital. He found Lena already in the delivery room, scared but trying to be brave. "Too early," she whispered. "It's too early." "They're Blackwoods," Roman said, taking her hand. "They're fighters, just like their mother." The delivery was difficult. Hours passed. Victoria arrived with Oliver, who waited anxiously with his grandmother in the family room. Finally, the first cry pierced the air. Then another. "A boy and a girl," the doctor announced. "Small, but healthy." Tears streamed down Roman's face as he held his daughter while Lena cradled their son. They were tiny but perfect. Oliver burst into the room, followed by Victoria. "Can I see?" he asked, standing on tiptoes. Roman lifted him onto the bed beside Lena. "Meet your sister Emma and your brother Jack. They're so small," Oliver whispered in awe. "Just like you were," Lena said softly. Victoria wiped away tears. "They're beautiful. All 3 of my grandchildren are absolutely beautiful." The twins needed to stay in the hospital for a few weeks, growing stronger. Roman and Lena took turns staying with them, while making sure Oliver never felt left. One night Roman found Oliver sneaking into the nursery at home. "What are you doing up, buddy?" "Making sure their nightlight works," Oliver said, and leaving them a note. Roman picked up the crayon-written paper. In Oliver's careful handwriting, it read, "Dear Emma and Jack, I'm your big brother. I'll always protect you, love, Oliver." Finally, the twins came home. Oliver took his big brother duties seriously, helping with diapers, though he complained about the smell, singing lullabies and telling them stories about their daddy being a superhero in a business suit. Late one night, after all 3 children were asleep, Roman and Lena stood in the nursery doorway. "Remember when you were just my secret?" Roman whispered, wrapping his arms around her. "Now look at what we have." A teenage Oliver is going to have quite the story to tell about how his parents got together. Lena laughed softly. "The best kind of story," Roman said. "One with a happy ending." A cry from one of the twins broke the moment. Then the other joined in. "Your turn," Lena smiled. "Our turn," Roman corrected, taking her hand. Together they went to tend to their babies, their hearts full of a love that had grown from a secret into something more beautiful than either could have imagined. Outside, the city slept. Inside, a family built on second chances and unshakable love grew stronger with each passing day. The twins were just beginning their story, but they were already part of something magical, a love that had overcome every obstacle life had thrown in its path. 1 year passed in a blur of midnight feedings, first steps, and Oliver's proud big brother moments. The twins were growing fast, each developing their own personality. Emma was bold like her father, while Jack was gentle like Lena. Roman walked into chaos one morning. The twins had discovered how to climb out of their cribs, and Oliver was trying to help Lena corral them. "Emma, no." Oliver chased his sister, who was crawling at lightning speed toward the stairs. "Daddy, help!" Roman scooped up Emma just in time. "I think someone's ready for a big girl bed." Life was wonderfully messy. Board meetings were interrupted by photos of the twins' latest achievements. The office nursery was always full of laughter, but not everything was perfect. James Sterling had been busy plotting his revenge. The news broke during the twins' first birthday party. James had partnered with Roman's biggest competitor, using inside knowledge to try to take over Blackwood Enterprises. "He's going after everything," Victoria warned. "The company, your reputation, everything." Roman looked at his family, Oliver helping the twins blow out their candles, Lena capturing every moment on camera. Let him try. The battle for the company was fierce. James had powerful allies. Stock prices plummeted. Some board members wavered. One night, Oliver found Roman in his home office, surrounded by papers. "Are the bad people trying to take your company again, Daddy?" Roman pulled his son onto his lap. "Some people think money and power are the most important things in life. But they're wrong," Oliver said with certainty. "Love is more important." "That's what Mommy always says." Those simple words gave Roman an idea. The next day he called an emergency shareholders meeting. But instead of holding it in the boardroom, he held it at his house. Shareholders arrived to find the twins toddling around. Oliver proudly showing off his treehouse, and Lena serving homemade cookies. "This is what we're really fighting for," Roman told them. "Not just profits, but people, families, the future." He laid out his plan, a new direction for the company focused on family-friendly policies, sustainable practices, and community investment. "James Sterling wants to strip this company down, lay off workers, destroy what we've built. I want to build something that will last for our children and their children." Victoria stood up. "My son isn't just a CEO, he's a father, a husband, a man who learned that true success isn't measured in dollars. I'm putting all my shares behind him." One by one, the shareholders sided with Roman. Even those who had wavered couldn't deny the power of what they saw, a leader who had found his true purpose. James's takeover attempt failed spectacularly. The press dubbed it the family man's victory. That evening, as the twins practiced walking between Roman and Lena, Oliver asked, "Did we win, Daddy?" "We sure did, buddy. But you know what? We won the moment you ran into my office that day and called me Daddy. Everything else is just details." Lena put the twins to bed while Roman and Oliver built a pillow fort in the living room. "Tell me the story again," Oliver asked, snuggled against his father. "About how you and Mommy fell in love. Well, once upon a time there was a man who thought he had everything, but he didn't know he had a son. That's right, he didn't know that the most precious thing in the world was right there all along." Lena found them later, both asleep in the pillow fort. She covered them with a blanket, her heart full. The baby monitor crackled with Emma's familiar cry, followed quickly by Jack's. Tag team crying right on schedule. But as Lena headed upstairs, she wouldn't have changed a thing. This beautiful chaos was everything she had ever dreamed of and more. Their love story hadn't been traditional. A secret pregnancy, 5 years apart. A dramatic reunion, public scandals, corporate battles. It had all the makings of a soap opera. But real love, they had learned, wasn't about perfect timing or smooth sailing. It was about fighting for what matters, about second chances and new beginnings, about a little boy who refused to keep his father a secret any longer. The next morning, Roman woke up still in the pillow fort, Oliver's small hand in his. Upstairs, he could hear Lena singing to the twins, her voice mixing with their giggles. He thought about that day in his office, when his world had turned upside down in the best possible way. How one word, Daddy, had changed everything. Some people still whispered about the billionaire CEO who had given up his bachelor life for a ready-made family. But Roman knew the truth. He hadn't given up anything. He had finally found everything he never knew he was looking for.